So I haven't been particularly involved in these discussions because the notice, this all occurred before I was on the board. But I may have been the origin of one suggestion that we ask the union to include in the training materials we've asked them to create the specific advertisement that the board found to be in violation of the code. So one suggestion could be to forward the Board of Ethics' current PowerPoint presentation to the union's attorney. Say, update this, approve it as you see fit, but specifically, please include as a case study example the particular ad that the board found to be in violation of the code.
Okay.
That sounds good. So that would be your homework assignment.
Okay.
Are we on to the rewrite now? Or am I going too fast?
Oh, well, two, you were going to ask somebody to work with you on that PowerPoint for the with the union council, but maybe that's not happening
Yeah, it
now.
looks like we just turned it over.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good.
I think that makes
Mm-hmm.
more
I mean,
sense.
it's straightforward.
Okay.
Okay.
Code and PowerPoint.
And so I guess we're back to you,
Yeah,
again,
how
for
are
an
we doing with that
update.
rewrite?
Well, the rewrite, we had assigned Bill and Kathleen
That's right.
and Keith, I mean, there's a third person. We'd asked if you would take the time to look at in our three sections of the code and just highlight in yellow parts of our code that were not in the state code. Have you had time to do that?
I will confess that I have not.
Okay.
I'm in the same boat. Kathleen, you're gonna look us both make us look bad?
No,
Probably.
because I did a different assignment.
Oh.
I mean, I thought we were divided up into groups, and we were to take our specific part of the ordinance and compare it to the other parts of the ordinance itself. So I did a different. So no, I haven't.
Okay, so wait, so
What have you done? This is very interesting. I'm curious.
Well, I was looking for. I mean, there's a lot of repetition, you know,
Yeah.
In our code.
in our
Yes.
code, and there's conflicts, and so that's what I was looking at. And
Oh, I see.
I thought that's what we were
This
doing.
is what I thought would be helpful.
Mhm.
And then Dave, I don't think you were here when we were talking about this.
I wasn't here when these assignments were made in that.
Yeah, it was simply, is to take, each one of you got one of the groups, employees, appointed officers, and elected officials. And don't
I had
know-
elected officials.
Elected officials, employees, okay. And so whatever that leaves.
Yeah.
And is to take our code section that addresses that and compare that to the state section and just to highlight on our section, on our code, stuff that's in our, that our code has that's not in the state one.
The concept is that ours is so much longer than the states. The states is generally the model that we're trying to follow, but what is the state missing? Isn't that what?
That was what it is.
That
Yeah,
was
going back,
that's where
right.
it came from. I think that
Yes.
from Assemblyman training, he says, I don't want those 55 pages, I want it back to where it was at 5 or something. Well, I don't expect to get down to 5, but the concept that we had is when Dee and I looked at this, we thought, hey, the state works really well. It's
It looks
only
good.
10 or 15 pages
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Why don't we try that? But what is the state missing? Because it's not necessarily perfect. What do we need to add to the state and use that as the model, as opposed to starting with the 55 and start like paring it
Deleting.
down?
Yeah, see, that's sort of what the ethics board asked us to do.
Mhm.
The ethics
The assembly.
subcommittee. And we just said, no,
Yeah.
the state looks better to begin with. So we're just trying to figure out what's missing. You know,
What's
what of our
missing from the
code
state?
is not in the state code.
Mhm.
And not slight variations or something, it's just
Yeah.
subject
Right.
covered. So if you just take a yellow highlight pen and do that, then David and I can compare, okay, oh yeah, here we do think this is important, yeah, this probably is important. And it may be that a lot of our stuff isn't important at all, it is just all this repetitive stuff.
And you, if I remember, you had talked to the ethics officer at the state, or, sorry, the...
I did, but I can't remember anything about that. Yeah, I did, but.
No, you talked
You've
to...
slept since then.
You talked to him, and the concept there was to have him help point out some of the weaknesses in his code that he's been working with,
Mhm, mhm.
to help us when fashioning ours.
And he was very gracious.
He was very great. He spent a lot of
Yeah.
time with you on the phone, if I remember.
Yeah.
And what was the
I'm
what was
glad
the
you
summary?
remember.
Can you summarize that?
Well, actually, no, I can't.
Okay, all right.
This Woodman?
What was his
Is
name?
it John Woodman?
It might be.
Oh,
Yeah.
do you know him?
I do know John Woodman. He's a good guy.
He was very, I remember him being very helpful,
Maybe. Yeah.
spending a lot of time with you.
Although I keep seeing his name, so maybe, I may be recollecting him correctly too. He's running for judge,
Mhm. Oh, for a Superior Court?
Yeah.
Right.
very highly regarded.
Mhm.
Okay, but, yeah, so if we could do that,
Mhm.
and then, and I'm hoping, you'll come up with a page or so of yellow highlighting, and then we can see if it's important and do it fairly quickly.
Okay.
Having been through a lot of this, especially the political campaigns, it seems, gifts is a big area, but we've simplified that already, we might just take our gift section.
Mhm.
Conflict of interest, let's see how the state handles it. For political activity, I just think that has to be simplified, not have all this myriad of little rules and just traps for the unwary is what it is right now. There should be sort of simple rules. So I'm hoping that we can get to their smiley face thing or something simple. And and this is because I'm the one that gets the 10 questions per day during political campaign cycles. What can we do this? Can we do that? Is everything slightly different than the last question? And pretty much you have an 80% chance of being right, and a very strong 20% chance of being wrong for any given answer.
And these are all those that you filter out from us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, and I have one I need to bring to you today, though. So, a conflict of interest issue that just came up.
So I suppose the concept here is we'll go back to our individual groups and then discuss it again next meeting.
Yeah, and please don't spend a huge amount of time on it.
Yeah.
Just read this couple-page state court thing, and then just quickly. I don't anticipate it'll take that long. Really.
Okay.
It's not a big time.
So we'll roll that in the next meeting too. Are we ready to go on to C? Slow me down. Advisory opinion 2014-4.
And this is just the last draft, and all we have to do is approve it, and it can get sent to the, in this case, is it the what was this one? Man. Oh, this isn't an advisory opinion, sorry. It can get posted or...
This is the
This is the one about...
marijuana.
This was the marijuana one,
Yeah,
wasn't it? Yes.
So although he got your informal opinion, we haven't formalized it by accepting this, publishing it on the website and sending it to Chair Training if you want to.
Now, this is who ended up writing this? Is this Glenda's or
No,
this
It's
is
Kelly.
Terry?
Carrie.
Yeah, this was me, but I cannibalized a lot of things that Glenda had done for us.
I think I will abstain from this one and the next one since I missed the first part of this training.
The issue was because they had a resolution they wanted to pass.
Like a no on two.
Yeah.
And can I make a recommendation? Because I did not study this ahead of time, and apologize, Terry. Because Glenda was the other person so involved with this, if I can assign her to relook at this for the next meeting, I think that would really be helpful. Because I remember when I read this, Terry, I did have concerns with it. I can't, of course, remember what those concerns were at this point. I know that one of our thinking at the time was there were so many ambiguities, and I didn't think it came across that was emphasized in this opinion. So, let's assign it to Glenda so we know it'll get done. And have her come back with suggested edits.
That works for me.
Mhm.
Anybody
That's
else?
good?
That sounds good.
Because,
for me.
the two of you were
Yeah.
the two architects of this.
Okay. I can't remember, did we, where are we at with this editing? Did we have something from Glenda, then you went back and edited that?
We had a
or-
long memo from Glenda
From
about
Glenda, yeah.
what is partisan versus
Right.
non-partisan.
And so you took that and turned it
and then
into
there was
this.
elements of that I took and then
Mhm.
rolled into this code. And then, and then part of the question just became, and I think you see it reflected, there's two versions of that.
Mhm.
So the one, is more just, the code's just not clear, so what the heck can we do? The other one still has sort of like, it has more guidance, sort of like, well, here's how, the other one, the idea is more of, the code's not clear, here's how we are going to interpret it, and you should, keep that in mind as you move forward. And so it's trying to actually lay out, like we did with the letter to he who should not be named, saying like, look, this is how we're going to determine what counts as partisan versus nonpartisan.
Okay.
And for Kathleen and Bill, this is something the board sort of learned the hard way, was a lot of times we come to parts of the code which really are very difficult to apply because you can't really understand what the code intends or this and that. And Assembly Council, who had a very large hand in drafting this, said, well, that's okay. The Ethics Board is the one that says this is how it's going to be interpreted. And so that's what he's talking about here is this particular ethics section is really very difficult, but this is how we're going to interpret it. That's what we do.
We can kind of left to our own devices.
Versus we can't say it's wrong because we can't understand the code.
Right. Okay, so we'll move C1 and D1 under 7 to our next meeting after when Glenda has a chance.
Well, D1's different.
Oh, is D1's different?
D1 is about
Photographer.
the photographer to take pictures of the fire department. And this is just, we gave them the authorization to do it, but then the fire department said get rid of those calendars.
Well, again, the main idea for this one is what it occurred to us in this one is that what was happening is that the mayor, for this issue, can you use municipal resources for a charitable donation? And this goes back to like firefighters using the boot, to collect. And the mayor issued some policy directives on that, sort of like lays out a checklist of what would count, what won't count. But what it appears has happened is that some people in various agencies in the city are taking that checklist and saying, okay, here's the checklist, and as long as I check it off, as long as I okay it, it is now consistent with the code. And that's not the case. It's that the checklist is what the mayor's office is going to use to basically give you an exemption from the code's prohibition of that kind of conduct. And so the purpose of this letter was just to get it on the web and to make it public that people should think of that policy directive that way, that it doesn't replace the code, and it doesn't mean that people on their own should be using that checklist and deciding for themselves. It's just there for guidance for when they make their request to the mayor's office for that exemption.
Well, I was going to say, the code, the occasional use of municipal resources, I looked at the PMP, the mayor's PMP, which by the way goes to employees, is as how to define those terms and fill in the gap. So it even though the code section is overriding, the problem with the code section was it didn't define what occasional use of municipal resources was. And so the mayor said, okay, well, I'm going to fill in the blanks for you. Here's how we're going to define it. So I understand your point, Terry, but I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I mean, you might, if you look at the code section that's cited on the letter, right, it's, so the mayor is defining what, occasional use of, but the authorization for that use does not occur until it's been authorized by the assembly or the mayor. And so I think what the letter is trying to reflect is that until you actually have that authorization, what you should not do is take that PNP and say, the mayor's defined what occasional use means. According to my lights, this meets that standard and therefore it's exempt from the code. That's not the case. At least I take that conditional there, that the occasional use is permitted if duly authorized by the assembly or the mayor. So I take that to mean
So
that
that's a quote.
That's a quote, right? And so.
So I guess, Terry, I'm confused on what you're trying to say. What's the point of the letter? That even if you have the mayor's or assembly's designates authorization, that it still has to come before the code?
Well, you might look at the sentence here, right, how, the second sentence in the third paragraph. This policy statement can lead to confusion in that it gives the appearance that activities that satisfy those criteria are automatically exempt from the code's prohibition. This is not the case. And it lays out that you have to have the, unless and until, unless and until the assembly or mayor or his or her designee authorize it in writing. Right, because remember, she came in and she said, I can't remember who she had look at it, but it was someone in the
The
fire
fire chief.
department, the fire chief, right, said, oh, well, here's the mayor's PMP, check, 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 you're good to go. And that's just not the case, that, unless the fire chief's been made the mayor's designee on this issue, the code prohibits the use of municipal resources for because remember, there's the blanket prohibition, right, that you may not use municipal resources at all for issues unrelated to municipal affairs. Then there's this exception. Occasional uses for charitable type things is okay if you've been given in writing approval from the mayor or the assembly. And so what's happened is that, at least in the ride check case, what happened was that she just went to the fire chief, reviewed it and said, oh, it's okay, it's good to go. But if he wasn't the mayor's designee for this particular case, and he was not, then actually she was not protected, that she was in violation of the code.
Well, and I have to say, it's interesting that then the ethics board is enforcing the mayor's power of PMPs.
Yeah, that's it. Again, the point of the letter was to make clear that you have to. Well, I take the mayor's PMP as saying something like this: you're wondering if you're going to get approval from the mayor to do this. Here are the criteria that I'm going to be using when I make that determination.
And does that PNP talk about assembly approval in there? Or
I don't think it does. I think it just
PNPs
talks.
are directed at employees.
Yeah, so I
and
think
not at elected officials.
Well, that's right, and I don't think the mayor could designate. The mayor could not, I don't think, designate to the assembly, right?
Right.
How they. So the assembly, for whatever reason, it seems to me, could give you an exemption from the code on this.
Or he could have given in writing, permission to the fire chief to deal with these matters.
That's right. That's right. So if so the fire chief could be made the mayor's designee on these type of issues.
Within the PMP couldn't be read to itself say, I am blanketly giving my blessing to everything that satisfies this checklist.
It could.
That's why I'm wondering. That's why I'm going to abstain.
Well, I suppose if the mayor said, well, it would have to be to get to the blanket checklist, right? The mayor would have to say
I
any.
authorize in writing
That's right.
everything that. Right.
Well, it would have to be beyond, and I authorize that any city employee is now my designee to give written permission for
unless
this.
the PMP is the mayor's action itself. This PMP is the mayor's authorization that the following are not prohibited by the code because they are occasional uses.
And I have to relook at it too, because there's somewhere in there where it says it must be in by writing, but I don't think that applies to all parts of that PMP. I just don't remember it.
Yeah.
Have the PMP in here. Charitable contributions, municipal resources. Is that the
80-1 or
PMP?
80-2? Or 40-1?
80-1, yeah. It's right there at the end of that, behind the letter itself. Yours doesn't have it? Maybe I printed it for me. Here it is.
Stop getting thrown around in here. Cool, calm down now, Lisa. Supposed to make it into a paper airplane.
And didn't we at the time of this say that we didn't think we had jurisdiction because and are outside the jurisdiction of the board if duly authorized by the assembly, or that's where that assembly business comes in. If duly authorized by the assembly or in writing by the mayor or the mayor's designee. So that's in the code. So it's outside our jurisdiction. So then I walked upstairs to the municipal manager.
Well, it's not outside our jurisdiction, but it would be outside our jurisdiction if authorized by the mayor. So what we told her to do is that right now, if you proceed without getting authorization from the mayor or the assembly, you will be in violation of the code.
Okay, but then we were saying that it will be outside our jurisdiction if you walk upstairs and get the mayor.
Yeah, and that's what the letter later
So
reflects.
we
The
walk
letter,
upstairs.
yeah, the letter at the end says, is our understanding that since submitted, you have now gotten the mayor's approval, so it's basically a moot issue. The only reason we're issuing the advisory is to make it clear to others that they actually need to get that authorization.
Okay. Well, I didn't know how to look at this one. Oh, that's right. There's a gate right there in front of your seat. It goes on forever. Well, can I ask you, the chair, I do have one I need to get resolved,
Mhm.
and if I could, we only have about 10 more minutes. Can I, and I hate to do this, but,
I was just about to ask, what do we want to do with this letter? Do we want to go on?
I can make a motion.
I think you should make it.
Mr. Chair, while she's considering, I'll make a motion to approve the letter. I understand the issue as explained by Mr. Kelly. And, forward the letter up to Ms. Second, or at least publish.
And publish.
Well,
Second?
okay, any objection to that?
Abstain.
Okay. Let's do it then.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Mr. Chairman, can I?
Yes, of course.
This is just in my email this morning.
Is this part of is it in here at all, or is
No,
this
it's not.
straight to us? Okay.
Hot off the presses.
Must be the other side.
Oh, so the drawing on the other
So we
side.
can mark where we got to.
I was going to say, this is going to be interesting, right? It's like, on the reverse, you'll see the property map and how.
And if you read it real quick, I'll explain who these people are.
And explain what the synergy program is.
Well, then why don't I just start explaining
Sure.
right away? Kate, the person this is from, is our CFO. This the synergy program is SAP essentially. It's some configuration of SAP.
What is that?
I'm sorry, that's the.
That's the new accounting program they spend forever and a lot of money. to put in.
That's our $40 to $80 million.
Okay.
40 to 80.
They paid internships, or
SAP, what does that
they're
say?
trying to get college kids to fix the problem. Is
Isn't
that?
SAP the contractor that's making the program?
Well, initially SAP was the software program, and then the implementer, who's going to take it and put it into our system, was Black and Beach.
Oh.
Then, many configurations later, SAP has come back to do a quality assurance something or other for many $100,000. Now they're helping out for many more hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Maybe we didn't call it AS.
Good job.
So anyway, so the Synergy program is some reiteration of the SAP program, highly contested program. But at any rate, so apparently that program is offering paid internships. And by the way, I haven't talked to her. I know this arrived, I guess yesterday afternoon. It was yesterday afternoon, 5:43. So here's paid on now. Kate is the CFO is in charge of this program. She's unfortunately inherited it. I don't think that she would, I mean, she would love it to be somewhere else, but for all practical purposes, she's the leader of this.
Yeah, she likely to retain her position after July 1.
She came in sort of temporarily when the last CFO left, Lucinda Mahoney, so I don't have a sense of that, whether she'll be here. Oh, you're right, so, just a simple question, yeah. Well, the new mayor is, July 1st, and, normally they have that resignation thing, although I think some new people will be in right away. So that's a good question, I don't know.
When she says recruitment and approval process, does she mean the selection of?
Selection.
Okay.
Right. And that may, by the way, be very well true, that she happens to know about this and they apply to this program. So, anyway, but she's ultimately the administrative head of the whole thing. Now, when I say that, she's the person in administration that's responsible right now for this whole program. It's largely, when I think through it, it's largely done by independent contractors. I mean, so Synergy program now is a group of independent contractors who are implementing the software. So I'm just trying to think this through. So it's independent contractors who are implementing and who are working with our employees to try to get this job done. And so is the Synergy program the independent contractors, or is it us? I would bet it, and we need to find this out, but I would bet it's the independent contractors that the city has hired. So the city, let's assume that the city hires independent contractors to get this program working, and that program is proposing to hire her son as an intern.
So who does review the applications?
Well, she's saying that the Synergy program does, so I would, again, I bet that would be let's assume it's the independent contractors.
Okay.
Because we have quite a few, Peloton is one of them, and they're getting paid like another $5 million to do this. So she really is the person in administration to which the independent contractors report. I'm gonna go look at employees. Acquisition of an economic interest or disclosure. Because remember, there was something about to have a contract that had to be competitively bid. I'm sure it's this.
Can I just make something clear? I just want to confirm. Independent contractors are generally reporting to, at least in construction, they generally report to a general. Is there a prime contractor on this whole thing? Isn't that SAP?
I don't know enough about their.
Because to me, it wouldn't make sense that the independent contractors would report to her. I would think that the big contractor would report to her, but they would report to, if it's SAP, as an example. I don't know who's running the whole.
So one question might be, how many levels down is this?
Because if Synergy reports directly to her, that to me may create an issue, but if it's several layers.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got to apply shortly.
Well, that's it. That's why I just got this on my desk and I'm bringing it to you.
Well, if you look at 025E,
That's, yeah.
is that your?
Yeah. Acquisition of an economic interest.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and somebody within the household. Yeah.
Okay, so that is, everybody, 1.15.025E. Acquisition of an economic interest in municipal contract business. No municipal employee or member of the employee's household shall acquire directly or indirectly an economic interest in a municipal contractor engaged in business with the municipality, unless the contract is competitively solicited.
Well, would you consider that he's applying for a position and going through an interview? Is that competitively solicited? Is The fact his last name is different does make it a little bit easier for him.
Does he,
I mean, the municipality has already awarded this contract, right?
Right.
I mean, the amount of money that's on the table is already on the table. He's just asking if he can get it from one of the contractors. I'm not sure this provision, just reading it here
Applies.
extemporaneously, applies.
Roy's household, does that include, is he still living at home? Or does that matter?
Let's look, I'll look back at the conditions.
He's over 18.
Oh, he's probably a college kid, right?
Mhm.
It seems like there's not a lot of municipal action here from my understanding of what.
Mhm. That it's, you're thinking more along the line, Bill, that it's an independent contractor that's doing the hire, the supervision.
Yeah, and we've already voted to pay the independent contractor, we've already awarded the contract to the independent contractor, and what they do with that is sort of up to them.
Was that contract out of the
Oh,
competitive
yeah.
process?
Well, it probably at this point isn't, because they have to sole source it, because they have to have that contractor. So it probably is not competitively solicited. It was initially.
Mhm.
That happens a lot. You competitively bid your first one, and now that you're $20 million into it,
Yeah,
then
you don't
on
want
it.
to switch,
Mhm.
right?
What lines in here?
So I think, Bill, I think that reasoning applies personally, that the contract is with the independent contractor. And so can the independent contractor hire the son? Is there any problem there? Okay, so maybe we look more at I don't think we're really charged with nepotism analysis. Just any conflicts of interest. I'm gonna put with the prohibited conduct, I'm missing my O2O, can someone look at it? Prohibited conduct. See if there's anything in there that's.
See?
Okay, thank you. And I have your big book. Doesn't seem like there's anything in that one. Now, we do in our code have a nepotism section, but that would be a separate analysis that I would probably do a quick look at. I mean, that would be outside the code here. So again, I don't think you're charged with a nepotism analysis.
Thank you.
So if the CFO wanted to hire their child, well, then you would look at it more as a nepotism issue, not a conflict of interest. She's not using any undue advantage, or we're presuming she's not using any undue advantage to get the son hired. Is there any, obviously she has access to the information to know about the internships, that they're available.
I assume
But
that's
those aren't really
public.
confidential information.
No, I assume that's public information.
So if we assume that the synergy program, that this position comes under the independent contractor, then it looks like we're not finding a conflict of interest, because she doesn't, well, see, what's interesting, she really does administer, I mean, she's the head person.
And would they feel obligated to, or some kind of, would they feel compelled to, could she retaliate against them?
Mhm.
I'm not saying she would, but I mean, is there a potential for
Well, she
retribution if
certainly
they
has
fail
influence over the
of
independent
the contract and the money that's being
Mhm.
dispersed? And
Yeah, I mean, if it's not disclosed by him that his mother is the CFO, it may be rather difficult for it to keep quiet.
When you think in terms of E, do you think him getting hired counts as directly or indirectly acquiring an economic interest in a municipal contract? You think that's what that's meant by that idea that, so if I've been hired by someone, I've acquired an economic interest in their contract?
In definition, someone has a financial interest if they're an employee. So he has a financial interest. And an economic interest means benefit, financial interest, or special privilege. So he does have an economic interest.
Wow, so one way of looking
See
at
what the
them.
state code says.
So one way of looking at it is that he would be acquiring her son. We'll have to find out about the household stuff. Let's suppose he is a member of her household. Her son, who is a member of her household, is acquiring an economic interest in a municipal contract that was not solicited, that was not competitively solicited. If you looked at it that way, it's a violation of E.
I'm thinking that there is an economic interest here, but as Bill states, is it really in a municipal contract or a direct business relationship? I have to tell you, I know of other people whose kids work for the city during the summer, but they're never in that direct line. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, and I guess I'm thinking about, is Synergy paid by SAP or they paid directly by the municipality? I mean, is there enough of a separation? Because typically subcontractors are paid by the general. But I don't know how it works in this particular case.
And that is interesting, Keith, because the quote synergy program, what is that? I mean, because they're not the the contractors are SAP and Peloton, and so quote the synergy program, is that a
Sounds like
municipal
names
program?
that I would see in a comic book.
Mhm. So, who is the quote synergy program? Is that our own internal name for this conglomeration? We can call her. Do you mind? In fact, actually, let me call her. She's right down. How is it? Because everybody, we're already past our time. Do people have 5 more minutes? And I, unfortunately, should be meeting at 10 people in 20 minutes. I'm supposed to be telling them what the story is.
this prohibition applies in all respects to any entity. Pretty broad.
Which one is that?
Still reading E,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, one way of looking at it is like, maybe it's, one purpose might be to precisely prevent situations like this, right? I mean, like, I don't think it's what's going on here, but think about the malicious version of the story,
Okay,
right?
thank
Is
you.
sort of
That's-
like,
that's
we
what
award
came to
this
my mind.
contract, then the contractor hires my kid, and then I use Bill's argument and I say, hey, it's not the city, it's the contractor, so, but
Right.
it's all, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we've all known all along that this
But
is
if
about
I'm in
getting my
charge
kid a
of-
really nice job, yeah.
If I'm the CFO and I'm funneling money towards this project, and then you decline to hire my son, and then suddenly something dries up, or if you hire my son and then I want to give you more money, that it's almost like the appearance of that, of there being a connection there is, whether there's any connection in reality.
That's right. Yeah, I don't think there's anything
No,
malicious
I don't
going on
think-
in this case.
I-
But if you ask, is it, you know, the
But-
code is not just
But
about.
that's not right.
Yeah.
Well, and I give Kate a lot of credit for even asking the question, because
Well,
if obviously, when you look at the notes, you're like, yeah, well, you knew there was something going on, so you need to look into it.
right, and she says, I just want to make sure. I mean, I understand her perspective to the extent that this doesn't even occur to her as being, I believe her, I don't think that this is probably even occurring to her as being a problem. Because for her, in her mind, she's probably thinking of these multiple layers of separation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. If you look at 5, right, E5.
Mm-hmm.
You notice, like, you know, so suppose they hire the son,
Mm-hmm.
and let's suppose the contract needed to be renewed. While he was
Exactly.
5, it seems to me, would rule that out. It wouldn't.
Okay, this is Kate. You're right.
Hi, I'm
Oh,
Kate,
Hi,
CFO.
Kate.
CFO.
And I'm going to leave her with you because I have to be in a different
Oh,
meeting.
good
but-
Lord.
Nice.
I'm ready. I can handle it. I can
Boy,
handle
oh boy.
assembly. I can
Thrown
you
to the
guys
wolves.
turn
You know what?
folks or
This
nothing.
is the synergy person,
Oh, we
so
only-
she can handle
we-
this.
we only
part
have
of
two
this.
of them.
Karen feeding them monkeys.
I know we've
Yeah,
Karen
I know.
feeding them monkeys.
We've been told that this is the most traumatic experience of people's lives, though.
Vicky?
Hi. No.
No.
Board of Ethics.
Oh.
People
Oh,
that
I
come
don't
in.
know what I'm getting into then. All right, I don't want to keep you for long.
I think you had questions about what synergy program.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Keith, you want to get the Bible out and swear her in?
I used to be a commissioner with the RCA, so I know that by heart. I have, the Synergy program is a combination of the SAP, municipal-wide financial implementation that's been troubled, and you've probably read about in the newspaper.
Yeah, trouble is a good euphemism.
I came in August and we're working on getting that system back up. So I had an idea, so Synergy is also Chronos, it's a timekeeping system. So both of those systems are fragile and in need of remediation, and so I'm in charge of that undertaking that. You look so familiar, do we know each other? I don't know, okay. I was thinner once, you probably knew, and I had blonde hair. That was before I took over Synergy. So, that's what Synergy is, and this year we thought we're gonna go municipal-wide with business analysts, and they're gonna gather data on their payroll needs, because the configuration of the Chronos system has been very challenging, and just basically, just a horrible job was done on it. So we have to gather requirements muni-wide, so we thought we can never afford to get all the people that we need to put it on it, so we thought we'd get a bunch of interns. And all they have to do is know how to write. They have to have a writing sample that we evaluate. So my son is interested in that paid job. It's at $18.34 an hour. And I thought, well, that'd be a great job for him. He would apply with everyone else, but I would not do any of the hiring of any of these children, so he may never make it. But I thought, geez, I don't know if he could really apply. I supervise Synergy, so in theory, I supervise everybody that's doing that whole thing. So that's why I brought it to Dee to say, it's a paid job versus a free job where I could just yank them in and make them do it for free. And there's between 15 and 20 kids that they'll be selecting based on their resumes. His last name is different than mine, so they might not even know. He does. He's a college student. So I just wanted to clear that with you guys, and if you say no, that's cool. If you say yes, he's gonna make more money this summer than his friends if he gets selected. But, I'm not in control of the selection process.
Who is in control of the selection process?
The MOA, Deputy Program Manager, that works directly for IT in the overall scheme, but IT works for me. So, I won't be doing the hiring or the viewing, but there is a pathway back up to me. So that's why I wanted to ask you guys. Ultimately, I'm responsible for it.
The Synergy program, so who's funding that?
Synergy program is funded by borrowings from a master tax lease that we have with Key Bank. So
Okay.
we've got a borrowing of 21 million coming before the assembly. We borrow the money and then we use it to pay for external consultants. And this project, Kids to Help on this project as well, will be paid out of that borrowing.
Okay, so it's coming from the city then, so it's.
Municipal funds.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
okay,
is
yeah.
municipal
Okay, so
funds.
it's, okay.
And are you in charge of those funds?
I'm the chief financial officer,
Right.
so
Okay.
I'm in charge of everything that has to do with money, I guess
Yeah.
you could say. I'm sure you want to deliberate, I can leave if you
No,
have
I
any
was
other
just.
questions.
Oh, yeah,
Any
sorry, I
other
was just
questions?
like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the only questions that I have.
Okay. Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for your
very
time
much.
and for
Okay.
taking this issue
Well,
up
I
like
want-
on
Oh,
the
thank you
fly.
for your forthrightness.
No.
with that. I
Yep,
really
thank you very
appreciate
much.
it.
And I didn't
All
want
right.
it to be in the paper and embarrass the mayor. You know, you
Mhm.
don't need anything more bad happening to the SAP
Right.
project.
No, that's right.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much for
thank
your
you.
time.
Appreciate it.
Well, it wasn't as I assumed.
Assume he didn't let it out.
No, I assumed it was done by the general contractor, you know, and Synergy was a subcontractor, and it's not, it's kind of the name of the program that the city runs, or municipality.
Is it not really a municipal contract at all? Is that what we understand to be the case then?
Yeah, it's just, they need, part of their they need some research done by 18 people to go to each of the departments and determine what their payroll needs are and how they can incorporate it into the current program. But is one level of separation enough?
Yeah, it would be engaging in business with the
That's right.
municipality,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So it's that.
And then that sentence is really poorly drafted in E,
Mhm.
that you can't engage in business unless the contract is competitively listed. But there is no
Right,
contract.
right. Which phrase does it apply to?
Well, I may not feel comfortable coming to a conclusion as we sit here in the next 5 minutes. I don't know what other people feel, but I probably want to concentrate.
Well, yeah, and D just ran out on us. I hate to do it without D
I
here.
know that D and or Glenda were flying blind.
And
The problem is he needs to apply before our next meeting.
And interns are, they're not technically, I mean, are they technically employees or are they not? I'm having to ask you a question because you're the only employee left.
They're in place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, but I was afraid to ask her if she was applying for the CFO position for the next mayor.
Well, I wonder. I mean, so yeah. So then I do wonder if there's going to be an application process for these contracts, right? To be
Contracts of employment.
contracts of employment, right? It sounds like it would be a competitive process, right? And that she's not going to have any direct role in that competition. I mean, it sounds weird, but it sounds like
Well,
maybe he could do it, but he'd have to file a public disclosure of intent to solicit for a municipal contract.
Yeah. And then we've taken.
Right, just so in that way we could just sort of think of him as a company for a minute, and he wants to get this particular contract, this
We can't
internship
approve that
contract.
until after next meeting and this thing starts before then. Unless we just tell them how to handle any conflict. And you guys, we have had, this isn't the first time we've had short-term things given to
You don't
us, so
necessarily have to approve it, because it says municipal ethics officer or board, so that intent could be given to D to sign off on, if in fact this flies that way.
But then it says neither the employee nor the member of the immediate family takes any official action with respect to preparation of the solicitation, the award, or the municipal administration of the contract.
Well, that's when, remember we,
Administration of the contract.
we already ruled on one of those. Got shot down.
Wow. Boy, I don't. The problem I'm having is the linear
I know.
aspect of it.
So short.
It's short, and it's not like another department. We dealt with
No.
that before, where it's been another department or another group where so and so, like Dee said, you're over here, you're over here.
Mm.
But this is a little closer held after I talked to her than I originally thought.
Well, same here. And that's
I
why
mean,
I asked her if he was living at home, because that's just to confirm.
This is pretty common where we come up with this stuff, where I really want the kid to have an opportunity to have this, to apply for this position, right? I do have, boy, I have concerns though.
Well, the front page of the newspaper test is always a good one here, right? I mean, we don't do anyone any favors if it becomes a scandal.
And it's
Right, whether you
obviously
said the
one of
ethics
her
board signed
concerns.
off on it or not, that just makes us look bad, right? I mean, like, so what's the front page news, right?
So what
That-
good is it to
that
have an
the
ethics
city
board if it's gonna
CFO that's
let the-
running that administers this
100%.
contract, basically, the story's going to be hires her son. We will know the truth is, well, indirectly hired her son, but. I mean, it doesn't smell great, If it were, let's say, if it were her older husband who wanted that job, right? Let's say it's not an internship; it's it's an independent contract that her husband's company wants, her husband's computer company wants. I think we would just say no. There's no way you could do that. I mean, when you sort of like take out the emotional tug of the idea of saying, "Boy, I'd really like her kid to have that opportunity," and boy, it sucks that sort of like her job might prevent her own son from having an opportunity that he would have otherwise. If you take those emotional factors out, it doesn't look good.
And she seems to be very cognizant of not wanting to give a black eye to SAP.
Yeah.
It's bad enough.
Or the mayor's office, she very clearly said that.
Because it could be like, maybe the advice could be, we don't think it's a good idea, versus you can't.
Well, we're not being asked for any kind of opinion, written opinion. Are we being asked to essentially give a blessing or not? Just
That
kind
is
of
a
off
good
the cuff?
question. I got the
Well,
feeling that the answer was yes.
Yeah.
That I mean, certainly it would be beneficial. One way or the other, it would be beneficial to do an advisory opinion here. If we,
Right.
especially if we say
That's
yes,
right.
it's okay, because it may be the only thing
That's
she can
right.
hang her hat on if it were to become a scandal. Saying, I had this reviewed by the Board of Ethics, and they said it is
And
okay.
to back us up if this became. But if
If
we
we-
say no, we can always, we've done this in the past too, where we deliver the message and then we come up with something really.
Well, and if we say
later.
no, we don't have to necessarily write an advisory unless she
That's right.
wants one, right? I mean, we could just say, look, I would not do this, and you do not have any kind of immunity from the board if this blows up and becomes
That's right, we
a very
could keep
bad
it kind
idea.
of, keep it on the lowdown to say, we're not prepared to support you.
Well, and I would say that's certainly where I am right now. I'm with
Uh-huh.
Bill that I'm not sure I can come up with
Yeah,
a definitive answer right now. But if
yeah.
you say, am I ready to say
I'm
yes,
not ready
give
to
green
say
light,
yes.
this looks
Yeah.
good? In fact, if I had to choose right now, I'd say no.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
it-
consistent, but that's.
And I'm in the same boat. At first blush, I wanted the kid to have the opportunity.
Me too.
And then-
No, me too.
And then when after she spoke and she told us how the program worked, I was looking for reasons to support it, and now I can't do it.
Yeah, but you're giving a lot of weight to the emotional connection that I don't think is there, because she said pretty much, if he doesn't work there, he doesn't work there. He does something else. I don't think she's as
I know, we're
bent
putting
on
more
it.
on it than
Yeah.
she is even. Let me just toss this out here and see if you all are on board with this. Delivering a message through D, saying we're not comfortable giving the green light to this, especially given the time constraints. Not that I'm not blaming her for giving us lack of notice, because she probably didn't know about this or didn't even consider her son doing this until he got back from school or whatever. But given these time constraints, I'm not ready to give the green light. And if you all are in support of that, we can deliver that message, and then we can ask, do you want us to put this in writing? Do you want to formalize this, or do you want to just kind of let it go and just see what they ask?
Well, you might want to explain to Dee what the line,
Yeah.
the Synergy
Well-
is not a separate program, it's actually something run by the city that's.
Well, Dee had to go,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
know.
happy to explain this the next meeting. And we can talk about it some more at the next meeting if she wants to. If she wants to know why we came to this decision, I have no problem with that either. But especially, I mean, in some ways, because she's not here, I'm not ready to give the green light either. But how do you all feel?
I like that approach.
Okay. All right. Is everybody's? I see nodding. Any objections to that
No,
approach?
I think that's the good way to go.
Okay. All right. Did you write that down?
Did you get all that?
I got it.
Okay. Does this require a motion and approval? Or can we
No,
just,
this
okay,
is
good.
just deliberating.
All right. Yes.
Keith may have a problem with proposed
Our next
schedule.
meeting?
The second date, if
Oh, yeah,
possible, I'd like to suggest to move it to the first Wednesday to the second, if that meets other people's schedule.
And let me follow up too. I can talk to Dee about this. Would that help?
Yeah, I mean, Dee will probably want to, hey, what
Yeah.
happened? And if I could just say, hey,
Just
give
me
David a call.
Just
He'll
give me
let
a
you
call
know.
and I'll talk to, and if she has any questions, we can bring it up again. But if, and that way Dee can deliver the message and we can go that way. If she wants to do something different, just let me know. But
She
I-
can review the tape too if she wants to.
Perfect. Okay, very good. So we're talking about next meeting?
This is June 3rd now.
Yeah, I have a conflict on the 10th.
And
On the
I have to
10th?
say, I won't be here the 10th. I was going to have to say that somebody else could staff the
Oh,
meeting.
so we're looking at either the 3rd or the 17th?
Well, I have a conflict on the 17th.
Me
so
too.
was-
I do
that's the reason-
too.
That's the reason I was suggesting the 3rd.
Okay, I am available the 3rd, I believe.
I think it's the
I'll be out of
3rd.
town.
Yeah, I'll be out of town too.
I know this happens every year in the summer where people are.
You'll be out of town, you have students to teach.
Online, I teach them in the cloud.
In the cloud.
But by the way, because it is summer, I am free to meet any day of the week if that would help you in
Yeah.
terms of. It does. I don't have to meet on
I have
Wednesdays
to go back and
anymore.
look at my schedule to see if another day, and potentially I could do is send an email, well, at least to Lisa, of my available days. I just know that particular Wednesday is a bad day for me.
Okay. But otherwise, you're in town that week. Is
I am in town, and just,
Okay.
I have to cover the office. The licensed person has to be there, and the other person is normally there is gone, so.
So any other day, like if it were Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, you'd be good to go for that
Maybe
week?
I think Monday or Tuesday. Thursday would be bad.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Monday'd be best.
Are you still doing rotaries on Thursdays? My rotaries are on
Well,
Tuesdays, so.
I can
Is that-
skip the road, but Monday would be
Yeah.
best for me that week.
Okay. Because I just assume do it earlier on Monday if I have any play, because I'm out of town for 2 weeks. I won't be back to the 22nd. And
So if it
then
was Monday the 8th, I would be able to participate.
Monday the 1st,
I was thinking the 8th.
I was
That
going
would-
backward because I leave the 5th. I got it.
8th?
Yeah, so I won't be back. I hate to say it, I won't be back until.
Yeah. This is,
Actually, I
know this
won't be
happens
back
every
until
summer.
the 10th. You know, so I'll be out of town until the 10th.
So you'll be
When do
out
you
that
leave
day,
to go out
too.
of town?
I leave on the 29th of May.
Could
Okay,
we meet
then.
in 2 weeks on the 27th?
I won't be. You have a meeting, you have a conflict with a meeting on the 27th.
Or we could do a different time because.
I also could meet the next week on at least Monday.
The 15th?
Yes.
Yeah, I could do that.
That's, I'm not gonna be here.
I might
Yeah.
have a court argument, but it's not set yet.
I do have-
15th, 16th, or 7th.
I could do the 16th, a rotary on 16th, but I could just make it up.
I could do that.
I have to get back to you on the 16th, I don't know.
This is kind of a, we're looking right now, we might have to just go month to month for the next 3 or 4 months, as opposed to having every second Wednesday. But I'm available the 16th, and it sounds like everybody here, and possibly Keith, so
Yeah, don't hold up for me.
let's just, let's just plan it for the 16th, and then we'll, 11:30.
Adjust accordingly.
And adjust
Yeah.
accordingly. Does 11:30 continue to work for people?
Mhm.
Okay, it works for me.
And I'll have to find out too, because I'll have to get you other staff support on that day, so I'll have to find somebody
because
that's
you're not
available.
here, did you say?
I'm not here. I'm gone until the 21st.
Well, Dee can leave, but I don't know if we can do this without you.
Oh yeah, it's one thing not to have Dee and Glenda here, but without you, it's totally.
But let's tentatively plan the
Okay.
16th then. Okay.
Have we reached the motion to adjourn?
Oh.
Steve?
Oh,
Write
motion
that
to
down.
adjourn. Oh, can I make the motion? Someone else make it. I can second it, right?
Oh, you know, actually, we did
These
not.
rules
We
are
failed. We
informal.
failed to move to extend the
We
meeting,
did,
so the
yeah.
last 30 minutes never happened.
Never.
Guys, it's been 30 minutes.
Can we do a reference?
Has it been 30? I know, right?
All right,
O'clock.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.